Chullin Daf Tzadik, just a quick review. We started the Perek Gid Anosh yesterday, the Isser to eat the sciatic nerve. The Mishnah says that the sciatic nerve, the Gid Anosha, could apply also to Kachim. And the question is, if Kachim came first, the Isser of Kachim came first, then the Isser of Gid Anosha cannot apply itself to the Isser of Kachim, because the Isser of Kachim is a very strong Isser of Kares, and the Isser of Gid Anosha is a weaker Lav. And if you say that the Isser of Gid Anosha came first, and then only afterwards the Isser of Kachim came, well, that's obvious. There's no need for the Mishnah to tell us that. So the Gemara says, well, maybe they came simultaneously. And there's three ways that could occur. The first attempt of the Gemara was to say that it happened while the mother carbon became pregnant. So she conceived the fetus, and the Gid Anosha and the Kachim came at the same moment. The Gemara proved from Nazir that that's not true. First, she conceived the fetus, and the fetus became Kodesh, and only later on, at a further stage, did the Gid Anosha develop and become an Isser. So the Gemara says, well, there's another way to do it. What if the mother gave birth for the very first time? The mother cow gave birth to a Bechar. The Bechar only becomes Kadesh as it exits into the world. So in that situation, the Mishnah is coming to be Mechadesh that you should know the Kedusha happens only when it exits into the world, and the Isser of Gid would apply at the same exact second, either at the same second or it applied earlier, but that's the Chiddush that it becomes Kadosh when it comes out. Or, if we were already going with that logic, we could say that it's talking about that she was pregnant with Kachim. She's a Kaddish animal and she's pregnant with Kachim animal. But this Madarma holds that the Kachim is not Chal in utero, only when the animal comes out is the Kedusha Chal. Says the Gemara. Rav Papa says that Reb Chir Bar Yosef and Rabbi Yochanan don't argue, and they both agree that if you eat the Gid Anosha, you're chayiv for the lav, and if it's an oila, you must bring it up and be makriv it as an oila. You don't have to take the Gid Anosha out of an oila. Comes Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak and says no. In fact, there is a machlokes whether or not, and this is a very fundamental machlokes, can you be makriv an oila with a Gid Anosha inside of it? And he says the machlokes is as follows. There's two psukim. The first pasuk says, "V'hikter hakoyin es hakol." Hakol means everything. Rebbe says that comes to be marba, everything, including the Gid Anosha that's also for us to eat. You should put it on the mizbeach as oila. Rabbanan saying no, you cannot put a Gid Anosha on the mizbeach because there's a pasuk that says memashki Yisrael, only from foods that Klal Yisrael are allowed to eat. You don't put anything that's also for Klal Yisrael to eat. Says Rebbe, wait a minute, you put blood, you put chaylev on the mizbeach. Say Rabbanan, yes. That's because that's the main part of the carbon, but other parts that are not the main part, like the Gid Anosha, it's usher to put on the mizbeach. So what do Rabbanan learn from the pasuk V'hikter hakoyin es hakol? They learn that if there are kosher parts of the animal, such as the bones, the sinews that came apart from the animal before it went out to the mizbeach, you're allowed to put it on the mizbeach. Rebbe says no, those parts, even though they're kosher, since they're not attached to the animal, you're not allowed to put it on the mizbeach. That he learns out from the other pasuk Vasisa Lasecha Habasar v'Hadam. The Torah is telling us what do you put on the mizbeach? Meat and blood, not sinews and not bones. And Rabbanan learned from the Vasisa Lasecha that there's a concept called Paku. If the combination is phenomenon, if there's heat and moisture in the animal, sometimes parts of the animal fly off the mizbeach. So if you have meat, basar, and dam that fly off the mizbeach, you put it back on. But if there's sinews and bones and they flew off the mizbeach, you don't put them back on. And the Gemara says there's also machlokes amiroim in the same exact thing. That Rav Huna says, since it says memashki Yisrael, you don't put a Gid Anosha on the mizbeach when it's oila. Says Rav Chizda, a very interesting lashon. It's brought down in Shas a bunch of times. Mari dichi, like Rebbeinu Shel Oila, what are you talking about? Just because Jews aren't allowed to eat the Gid Anosha, that means that the mizbeach can't eat the Gid Anosha. And he says yes. That's the way it works. Because mashki Yisrael, it has to be something that Jews are able to eat. And if they can't eat, then the mizbeach can eat it as well. Now, the Gemara brings a brayso. Maybe you should bring a raya. It says that you bring shlamim, you throw out the gid into the amma, it's called, and the oila you bring up to the mizbeach. So maybe it means you bring up and you're makdir it. Says the Gemara, no, you just bring it up and you take it apart. You do nikur up on top of the mizbeach. The question is, why do you have to do it on top of the mizbeach? Do it downstairs, in the kitchen, on a table somewhere. The answer is Hakrivei no lefechasecha, the famous pasuk. When you bring a carbon to Hakadosh Baruch Hu, bring it like you would bring it to a noble. You don't bring him a cut up piece of meat that looks disgusting. You bring him a nice piece of meat. So first bring it up to the mizbeach, be makriv it nicely. Later on, you could cut it open and remove the Gid Anosha. And the Gemara brings at the end that there's actually Mefurish Brisa that says that when you bring oila, you remove the Gid Anasha, like Rav Huna said, like Rabbi Yochanan said, that you are not allowed to be makriv the Gid Anasha in oila. There's a Mishnah in Talmud. Now we go a little bit into Agata, and tomorrow there's a lot of Agata. The Mishnah in Talmud says that the tapuach on the Mizbeach, the center of the Mizbeach was called tapuach, that's where they threw the ashes. Sometimes it was so enormous that it was the size of 300 kur. Says Rava, that's a guzma, it's an exaggeration. And now the Gemara starts with exaggerations. Is there a concept of exaggerations in the Torah? Sometimes does the Torah embellish a story to make it more gishmak or not? Says the Gemara, there's another Mishnah. It says that in order to remove the hide easily, they would let the animal drink water from a golden cup. Says Rav, it's exaggeration. It means a copper cup. Says Ravami that in the Torah, Nevi'im and Chachamim, you see that they exaggerated. The Chacham, like we just said, with the 300 kur, in the Torah it says, Arim Gdoilos Ubetsurais Bashomayim, that the cities went up into Shamayim. Now we know cities don't go into Shamayim. Exaggeration. When they crowned Shlomo HaMelech, it says that the earth opened up from the noise, from the sound. So you see, that's exaggeration. The earth didn't open up. Says Shmuel, Chachamim only exaggerated 3 times. One time by the tapuach, that there was 300 kur. The other time it says that there was something called a geffen. There was like a curtain that people would hang their gold when they came to this battle. They donated the gold. There was so much gold, it was so heavy that they needed 300 kohanim to carry it. Says the Gemara, that's an exaggeration. They wouldn't let it grow that much, get that heavy. The other thing is that the paroichas, according to one Pshan and Rashi, the paroichas going into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, it was 20 amas by 40 amas. Says the Gemara, it was made from 820,000 strings, and it was a tefach wide, and it needed 300 kohanim to be tovel in the mikveh. They make 2 of these a year. Says the Gemara, the 300 kohanim is a guzma, it's an exaggeration. The Tanakam in the Mishnah says that the Gid Anasha, the Isser of Gid Anasha, is on both thighs, the right and the left. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda is mechulik, and he says only on one thigh. And he says the das noita, logic says, or the das says it should be the right. Now the Gemara is mesupik. Did Rabbi Yehuda mean that the das Torah? And by the way, this is the only time in Shas that this word is mentioned. What we say today, it's a common phrase, das Torah. It's here on today's daf. Is it das Torah? In other words, is it the logic that we got from the Torah that it happened with the right? Because as Rashi points out, when Yaakov Avinu was fighting with the Malach, well, actually that's the svara on our own das. Sorry. So is it the das Torah that it's on the right, or is it our own svara? Because as Rashi points out, that during the fight, Yaakov Avinu hugged the Malach, and the Malach hugged him, and the Malach reached around and grabbed his right thigh. So the Gemara tries to bring a raya from. It says that the sinews on Pesach, from Korban Pesach left over, they should be burned. The question is, what are these sinews? If it's basar, it should be included in the basar. Why is it by itself, category by itself? 4 pshatim. Either pshat is it goes according to Rabbi Yehuda that we don't know if it's the right or the left, and therefore we have a suffix, so you burn it. Or the pshat is that there's no suffix. Rabbi Yehuda knows it's the right. Just they got mixed up, the right and the left, therefore you burn these sinews on the 16th day of Nisan. The third pshat is that there's a new chiyuv, there's a new isser on the fat of chaylev, and that's what we're talking about, to burn that fat. And by the way, that fat on a deer is also asur. And the fourth pshat is we're talking about the outer gid, which is not asur min HaTorah. Just Chacham said it looks like the Gid Anasha, so they made that asur and they said burn it on the 16th of Nisan. Have a wonderful day.